Hi guys, John here again, another video. This one has taken me quite a while to do. It started off about 2 months ago in a Facebook group. I saw this article and it really struck a chord with me. And it's by a guy called Alan Stevenson. And because I was quite impressed with what I read, I asked him if I could use it in a video. And unbeknown to me, it's actually from a book. The article I read was from a book, and it's actually the very first bit of the book, and it's to do with Alan's near-death experience. And I don't want to go on too much. I don't want to spoil it for you and the events that happened in that time and leading up to it and a little bit after it, this video. So yeah, there we are. I'll just leave this with you. I'm not going to ramble on anymore because the video is quite long, and I do apologise for that, but I didn't want to leave anything out, you know. So anyway, I'll leave you watch it and let me know what you think. I wish I could say the day I died was just another ordinary day, so it would appear more literally dramatic. Instead, like an ironic preview of coming attractions, the day was besieged by the only snowstorm of the winter season in the Niagara Peninsula. For me, it was a prelude to the inevitable reality that each of us will someday face. It is a day that some may consider, while others fear it to an extreme. February the 26th, 2010 is only a short distance behind me, now that I have spent some time in the sun amongst the care of loved ones. I am grateful for having a peaceful space to do my healing of body, mending of mind, sorting of soul, and learning the lessons of what being means. That morning was quite different in that the fabric of my physical world appeared somehow out of sync. Under ordinary circumstances, most would be oblivious to these minute details. Pain for what I assumed was severe heartburn had lingered for 3 days. I was driven by a less than ideal life situation, ignoring the pain, although I knew deep down I shouldn't. It was here I first stepped into the conflicting pothole, having prioritised work over my health. I got ready for work, my routine unchanged except for the sluggishness that dogged me as I put on my winter boots. Seized with a powerful sense of apprehension at venturing out into the bitter cold Canadian weather, I still ignored the instincts that relentlessly nagged me. Thanks to a financial crisis where ends already did not meet, and a work schedule that had me off for the previous 6 days, I was compelled to ignore my inner voice and layer up to deal with the harsh weather. What my internal voice couldn't convince me of was the increasing pain of even doing the slightest movement. The thought of walking 6 blocks in the snowstorm only worsened my physical discomfort. For a fleeting moment I thought of asking my younger brother to help as he was in the living room watching the morning news. Unfortunately, I already envisioned his typical suck it up buttercup response to anyone mentioning a personal problem or hardship of any nature. Quickly dismissing the thought, I pulled my coat over my bulky layers and with a sense of great sadness slipped my hat and gloves on. Even as I opened the door to a blizzard and freezing temperatures, the sense of my impending doom hovered on the fringe of my awareness. The inexplicable sadness began to overwhelm me, and the raw emotion was yet another warning. Ignoring it with stoicism, I simply stepped outside and closed the door to the first opportunity to save my life. I didn't say anything to my brother, not even a simple goodbye, as tension was still high following an argument 2 days earlier. The cause as trivial as most were. The blasting wind and snow intensified. Clutching the collar of my coat to my cheek, I cleared the steps of my front porch. I churned my feet through the foot-deep snow, making my way over to the main street. With my head bowed, the biting wind still teared at my eyes. Even in optimal health, walking across town as I usually did wasn't an option on such a brutal day. The agony in my chest had reached a disorienting level, so I stopped at the store on the corner to grab a roll of antacid tablets, though it was against my better judgment. I simply knew I needed some kind of relief at that point, hell, anything. While waiting behind another customer paying for their purchases, the store clerk, who I knew fairly well, glanced at me several times with concern. Once again, an opportunity to save my life was presenting itself, if I would simply have asked for help. There was no excuse. I had had many conversations with the clerk over the past 6 months. I knew that he had been a paramedic back in his native Serbia. He had been able to qualify as a paramedic in Canada due to his English. The sad and ironic thing about that, his English was better than most born here. His eyes never left me as I struggled to open the antacid roll. I barely remember paying for them. As he counted the change, his eyes carefully assessed me. Though his words registered in my pain-racked mind, denial fought me on every front in my deteriorating condition, challenging all my common sense. "I'll be alright," I insisted, though in truth a feeling of sheer dismay, coupled with an emotional hopelessness, had my thoughts flitting and flirting. All the while the emotional roller coaster sped up to a point where it felt as though it would come off the tracks at any moment. Concentrating on the antacid package, it was all I could do to keep it together. Finally succeeding, I headed for the door while popping several tablets into my mouth. The regular, simple task of opening the door was as overwhelming as pushing a car, and once again I sidestepped an opportunity to save my life. I stepped into the ferocious storm to walk 6 blocks through weather conditions I have not seen in years. My feet dragged like lead weights. It was all but impossible to lift them from the steadily deepening snow. With each step, the vise of dismay tightened its grip on my chest even further. My mind searched for solutions within the pain-infused fog, as my ego barged to the surface of my thoughts and screamed, "This isn't a day and nothing's going to happen to me." Making it to the bus stop felt like a victory, though now I had to wait for the delayed bus. When it arrived and I boarded, I slipped the coins into the slot and realised as it lurched away into the snow that everything had changed from one heartbeat to the next. I sagged into a seat a couple of rows back behind the driver, becoming severely diaphoretic. My ability to physically move was reduced to slow motion, as my hands wouldn't obey my struggles to remove my gloves, coat and hat. With a grim understanding, I knew I had no choice but to ask for help now or die. And even with the cold truth staring me in the face, I couldn't immediately bring myself to act. Once again my instinct screamed at me to ask for help. Who knew how the mind and body truly acted under duress until faced with the most dire circumstances? Without thought, as the bus driver's eyes met mine within the mirror that hung above her, I asked her to call 911. She asked only why as she picked up the onboard phone. In a faltering voice I told her I was having a heart attack. Turning slowly, I noticed a woman sitting across from me. A horrified expression filled her round face as she clutched her bulky purse tightly to her chest. The pain began reducing rapidly, as a serene peacefulness gently enveloped me. My gaze slowly lowered to my boots and I thought, so this is what it's like to die. During the transition, I thought I died. My vision winked into darkness as all the pain I had suffered over the past 3 days vanished without worry, anxiety or fear. The calm peacefulness strengthened, replacing all of the pain of the moments before. Then slowly a misty opening began to appear about 6 inches or so in diameter in front of me. My mind was clear and I felt as light as air, as a strong sense of fascination engulfed my being as I felt a slow, easy sideward movement with only the slightest pressure around me. Glancing down, I noticed I had 4 arms, legs, hands and feet. One set was more densely proportioned while the other sets were translucent appendages, hovering just outside my physical body. At this point my long-time guardian, a tiger nearly 6 feet tall at the shoulder, stepped out of the near blizzard conditions onto the bus. It seemed odd, but I knew him from other encounters during my life. Tiger is a soul guardian, or what is known as a protector of souls. He approached me and lovingly rubbed his head on the side of my face. Slowly drawing back, he looked into my eyes and spoke into my mind. "You are about to die." Turning his head towards the adjacent windows, where holographic images displayed events from the past, present and future, slowing to images of my 2 daughters. He looked back at me and said, "If you choose to." "So I have a choice?" I asked in confusion. "Yes, you do. All of you have a choice. Everyone is given a choice with no judgment passed either way. Where you have been, where you are, and where you are going at all times is your own choice." I was overwhelmed by an emotional summary of my life, which we must all experience, whether staying or coming back. The best way to describe it would be to take every thought and feeling you've ever had and physical action you've ever done and place them all into one emotional category. Ask yourself which emotion best sums up your life to date. Mine was marked by guilt for wasting my many talents and in turn my life. We both gazed deeply into each other's eyes. In a soft, submissive tone I replied, "I want to stay. I want to live." "Very well," Tiger said. "Now you have a task." Tiger turned to leave as the thought flowed freely to me to follow. I didn't actually get up or walk anywhere, but we instantly travelled far to a place shrouded in a luminous white mist. As we arrived, Tiger stepped ahead of me, turning to face me at an angle. Out on the fringe of my left peripheral vision, 3 beings appeared, whom I come to refer as the beings of 111 or 3. Once I focused my attention on them, they vanished, but when I looked at Tiger, they reappeared, only to vanish once again as I turned towards them. It reminded me of gazing at a distant star in the night sky. If you look directly at it, it seems to wink out of sight, but reappears if you look a bit off and away from it. Here began my first lesson with Tiger. I was emotionally searching for understanding as why I could, yet couldn't see the three beings. "It does not matter," Tiger whispered. He then informed me the central being was a teacher, not only to myself but to the other two beings present. Eventually they will become teachers themselves. The teacher is an original consciousness, or child if you prefer, or what most refer to as God. At this point there are some important details viewers must understand. First, time as we perceive it does not exist. It is but a way in which to measure distance, such as the distance light travels in a year, or the sun traversing the sky from horizon to horizon. Points of reference sake, however, we shall stick with time as it is traditionally understood. I died at roughly 9:25 AM, and I was about to spend what would be considered a day's worth of time on the other side, prior to coming back to physical reality roughly 10 minutes later at 9:35 AM. I was soon to understand the purpose of coming to this place, as my focus intensified to such an extreme level that I felt anything and everything was possible. Tiger acted as a conduit for what was to follow, as most of it flowed through him. A little to my right, several holographic, free-flowing images with full background appeared. Several times during the projection of images I would lack a clear understanding of the point being made. I would say in my mind, "Yes, but," at which point Tiger would patiently exclaim, "It does not matter." Finally, I began to understand that that phrase was an important teaching tool as well as a learning one. There are things that truly are important, and there are those that simply are not. Tiger escorted me back to the bus as it was time for me to return. I thanked him for sharing insight and truth. He once again rubbed his head against mine with intense love before turning and leaving the bus. As my physical reality started to return, I saw the bus driver standing before me, distraught and exclaiming, "What can I do? I think he's dead." With my physical reality returning to me, I became fully aware of the pain and surrounding environment. The first paramedic stepped onto the bus and asked a few questions to assess my condition. I felt incredibly relieved that someone had finally come to help me. When he turned and left the bus, I was filled with such dread that I screamed in my mind, "Please don't leave me now." But he was only returning to the ambulance to retrieve more equipment. The bus driver waited beside me until the paramedics returned. A frenzy of activity ensued, while three of them worked to stabilise me enough to transport me to the hospital. At St Catherine's General Hospital, a doctor and nurse proceeded to inject, spray and administer a vast amount of medication once the severity of my biological condition had been diagnosed. Then came the frantic orders from the trauma doctor. "Go, go, go, get him out of here now." Off I went to the more distant Hamilton General for heart surgery to save my life. It was a straight run down the Queen's Highway, the journey hastened by the urgent sirens of what would otherwise have been at least a 30-minute drive. Through the windows of the rear door I watched cars vanish as though they were standing still until I realised how fast we were travelling. The nurse sitting beside me looked at both paramedics flanking me and said, "We don't want to alarm you, as you need to stay as calm as you can." Then glancing at the cell phone on my lap, she added, "But if you wish to call someone, now would be the time to do that." My eyes welled up as I admitted that my cell phone had been disconnected the day before. She quickly retrieved hers and asked for a number to dial for me. I mentally searched for the first choice to call, but at the same time I didn't want to upset anyone. That was one of the hardest decisions I had to make, but I knew my daughters needed to know how much I loved them and what they had meant to me during the time I shared my life. Giving the nurse their mother's number at work, she tapped each number on the keyboard as I struggled to remember. Then she passed the phone to me. Once Deb answered, I immediately apologised and explained the situation. Then I relayed the message she needed to hear from me. I also told her that, although things had not worked out as we had planned many years before, I cared deeply for her and would continue to do so no matter what ultimately happened to me, and let her go with a deep sense of love. I envisioned the stoic expression on her face that would have concealed her distress, but I really had no idea what transpired in those few minutes after I hung up. When we arrived at the hospital, the paramedics rushed me through the blowing snow into the ER and down the hallways to an operating room. As I lay on the operating table, the OR staff stripped me down completely and prepped me for surgery. While the prepping was going on, a young-looking surgeon approached and slightly leaned over me and asked, "What the hell are you doing on my table?" With my last ounce of quick wit, I said, "I'm having a bad day." He smiled a little and walked away for a short time. When he returned, he said, "Your left artery is 100% blocked. Medically, you had no reason to have survived what's known as a widowmaker." I slowly regained consciousness later that evening. I emerged from what a somewhat foggy state to a sense of peace. A minor physical discomfort was still present, though only in the background of my awareness. Awakened in a large IC room, it was there I began to realise and feel the magical sense of being alive and all the magic a day holds. Over the following week in the hospital, gifts that I had returned with became apparent. Gifts may be the wrong term, as they are merely innate abilities and all, but for me they were life-changing legacies of my experience. So what do you think, guys? Did you like this? Please let us know what you think. And I will say this is probably going to be the last video from me from this channel before Christmas now, so I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and thanks to you all, from myself and Julian and the crew, for all your support over the last few years on all our channels. It really keeps us going, and we really appreciate it. And if you can support Alan, say his book link is in the description, and his YouTube channel is in the description. I know he's got more plans for new stuff very soon as well. And the story with Alan goes a long way after this video. There's a lot more to the events that happened when he died and stuff, so please look into this and judge it for yourselves. And otherwise, until next time, I wish you all bye bye for now.